Hi friends, I'm Chelsea and I am here to talk about the 25 books I want to read in 2025. So I'm sure you've been seeing a lot of these videos going around lately, and I actually haven't done one of these yet. I did join Booktube almost a year ago, but I didn't make a priority list for 2024, so I thought I would join in and make my priority list for this year. These are books that I have either owned for a long time that I really want to read, just books on my physical TBR in general, as well as books in series that I'm trying to continue or finish. And of course, I want to read a lot more than just these books, but I would love to get to these, and part of this is just to hold myself accountable. So it would be great if y'all would just remind me of these books and ask me how I'm doing on this, because it would be great to read some of these books. I do have a couple of new releases on here, and there's also a lot of other new releases I'm excited about, but I don't always read new releases right after they come out, so we'll see how many of those I actually get to. Most of these are books on my physical TBR that I would love to read. Before I jump in, let me know if you want to buddy read any of these, because I would love to do that and just kind of experience these books with you. So I have these in categories, and my first category is sci-fi, fantasy, mostly fantasy. This first one will not come as a surprise to you. It's also very thick and heavy. See if you can guess what that'll be. Yes, it is Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson, book 5 of the Stormlight Archive. I love this cover. It's my favorite cover of all the books so far. Would love to finish this series, or at least finish the first 5 books in the series. I did finish Rhythm of War in December, which I'll talk about in my December wrap-up. I would love to get to this sooner than later, hopefully in the first half of this year. I'm going to go through these kind of quickly because I do have 25 books to talk about. So I'm just going to tell you my general thoughts and plans and not a lot of details about the books, especially because some of them I have mentioned multiple times before. The second one is also Brandon Sanderson, but this one is definitely less chunky than the other one. So this is Mistborn. So there's the original trilogy and then either 3 or 4 books that follow it with a time jump, but I'm definitely hoping to reread this first book. I read it several years ago, but didn't continue the series. So I'd like to get back into it and read all 3 books in the original trilogy. That way I'll be mostly caught up on Mistborn and then caught up on Stormlight. So that would be a great feeling. I will be doing this as a buddy read with Shuba from Shuba Reads Books. And so we're excited to check this one out together. This next one is one that I had talked about wanting to finish by the end of 2024 and I never did, so I'm rolling this one over, and this is Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Poranek. And again, I love this cover. That's really what's calling out to me, but also it's a cozy, whimsical, Studio Ghibli-esque fantasy from what I've been told. I think it might have Beauty and the Beast vibes as well. There's a romance in it, so definitely want to actually read that one this year. Next is the final book, I believe, in a duology that I really enjoyed the first book, and this is Somewhere Beyond the Sea by T.J. Klune. I loved the first book, The House in the Cerulean Sea, and I'm curious to see kind of where it goes from there. I feel like for some reason this is more of a spring or summer read. I don't know if that's true at all, so I am gonna hold off till then to read this and finish this duology. Next up, this is the first book in a series, so not finishing or continuing a series, but I'm very excited to get to this. It's been on my list for a long time. So this is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I think it's a trilogy, the Broken Earth trilogy, I believe. Going to be doing this as a buddy read with Kat from Curious Cat. I just know that it is kind of a dystopian fantasy. It says, this is the way the world ends for the last time. It starts with the Great Red Rift across the heart of the world's sole continent. It starts with death, with a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal. This is the stillness, a land familiar with catastrophe, where the power of the earth is wielded as a weapon and where there is no mercy. And that's all I know. I'm going into this blind, but highly recommended. And then another one that I don't own yet, but that I would like to own, is Where the Library Hides by Isabel Ibanez. This is the second book in the Secrets of the Nile duology. I read What the River Knows and I enjoyed it. Very curious to see how this duology ends, and potentially do this as a buddy read with Cindy from Snacks and Stacks. We had talked about it when the book came out last fall, but I don't think either of us has gotten to it yet. I know I haven't. I don't know about her. I would love to get to that one this year and finish that duology duology. And then another one that is the second half of a duology is A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross, the one that comes after A River Enchanted. And of course, you all know Divine Rivals. That one really got popular, but the Elements of Cadence duology is kind of a lesser known one of hers, I think, but really beautiful writing, really great atmosphere, whimsical, cozy. I enjoyed the first book, so I would like to also finish that series this year. And then I have two sci-fi reads, and I have mentioned both of these before, so I'll go quickly. This one I think is going to be my next read. Some of you will be excited to learn that, and that is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. It's on my January TBR, so I literally just talked about this like 2 videos ago. And yeah, it's a big sci-fi series. I think it has like 8 to 10 books, which is kind of daunting, but I've heard great things and I really want to check this out and see if I like some sci-fi books. And then the last one is kind of a sci-fi thriller, I guess, but I'm going to include it here. So this is Recursion by Blake Crouch, another one that I've heard great things about. I think a common theme here is that I've been seeing a lot of people recommending these books, and I always love to take people's recommendations. So I had seen Faith from Faith's Reading Things and Ian from Ian Kubeli, and I think Ashlyn, his wife. I can't remember her channel name, but Ashlyn. I love all of them. They all loved this book, and so I want to read it too. All I know is that it's a sci-fi thriller having to do with an epidemic. There's 2 detectives, maybe some time travel stuff, but I don't know for sure. And I think maybe Deb and I from Deb Olivia talked about buddy reading this potentially, so we may discuss that some more. Sounds like a fun time. Okay, we are getting into the new releases, and I narrowed it down to 5, but again, there are so many great releases coming out this year. You've probably heard of a lot of them already from lots of different videos. I know I've been watching a lot of those, so I'm not going to list them all, but here are 5 that I definitely am excited to read. So the first one will come as no surprise. This is Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett, the third and final book in the Emily Wilde trilogy, I guess. You know, I love the first and second book, and I'm very excited to see how the series ends up. And I had also talked about potentially buddy reading this with Jessica from Jessica's Library Card. I already have some buddy reads lined up apparently, but if anyone, again, wants to join in, feel free to let me know. The next one is a book that I thought was coming out last year and it kept getting pushed back, so I really hope that it actually does come out this year because I'm really excited, and that is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana, I believe. She wrote the very irregular secret, I can't remember the title. You'll see it. The Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I should know because it was one of my top books of 2023, I think. Loved it. Cozy, witchy, rom-com fantasy, similar to House in the Cerulean Sea, very heartwarming, found family vibes. And at first I thought this book was like a continuation of that story and that series, but I think it's just set in the same world but follows completely different characters. But either way, I'm really excited to check out another book by this author. The next one will probably be on everyone's list of anticipated releases, and that is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I love Emily Henry. Funny story, made it to my top books of last year. Beach Read is my favorite of hers, and I pretty much enjoyed every book of hers. I'm very excited to check this one out. Don't know anything about it, but I'm gonna read it because it's Emily Henry. The next one is in a similar vein, and that is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. Now, I've only just gotten into Abby Jimenez by reading the Part of Your World series last year, but I really liked it, and I am curious to check out her new release. I don't know when any of these come out. Actually, I should have figured that out, but I think this one probably comes out in the spring or summer, if I had to guess, so definitely want to check that out. And then the last one on this new releases category is A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett, the second book after The Tainted Cup, which I know a lot of people enjoyed last year. I did as well. I just loved the combination of the really interesting, intricate, high-stakes fantasy world combined with the murder mystery, Sherlock Holmes kind of vibes with really quirky, funny characters. Just combined a lot of great things, so I am excited to continue in this world and with these characters. Okay, my next category is kind of several genres in one, but it's mainly literary fiction, and then I have maybe 1 or 2 historical fictions, and then like a mystery that doesn't really fit with literary fiction, but these are all just getting lumped together. I guess we'll just say general fiction. And this one I think is also on my January TBR, and I am planning to definitely get to it this month. I have the audiobook, and that is Hello Beautiful by Ann Napolitano. This one's been on my radar for a long time. I just know it's an homage to Little Women, follows this family of 4 sisters. It's literary fiction, so I'm excited to read this. I'm definitely wanting to check out more literary fiction this year, and this one's kind of at the top of that list. This next one is a book I've been putting off for a long time. I think partially because it's pretty long and mostly because it's really heavy material, but I have heard great things and I'm going to push myself to read it this year and stop putting it off. So that is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. You've probably seen this one going around. I believe it's kind of a retelling or inspired by David Copperfield, which I've never read. I don't plan to read it, so hopefully this will make sense. I just know that this is a very powerful, heavy, serious read. It takes place in the mountains of southern Appalachia. I'm in the Blue Ridge Mountains, so kind of a similar setting to where I live. And yeah, I think it just deals with a lot of heavy, serious topics, but I do really want to get to this one this year. Next we have My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Fredrik Backman. So you all know that Fredrik Backman is one of my top favorite authors. I am just working through his catalog of books. So I have this one, and Britt Murray was here. He also has a new release coming out this year, which I definitely want to read. There may be one or two other books of his I haven't read, but this one sounded really good. So it features Elsa, who's 7 years old, and her grandmother, who is 77 years old. Her grandmother dies, and she leaves behind a series of letters apologizing to people she has wronged. And then Elsa kind of follows this trail that is left behind through these letters. And it said her instructions lead her to an apartment building full of misfits, monsters, attack dogs, and old crones, but also to the truth about fairy tales and kingdoms and a grandmother like no other. It seems like it'll be funny, but emotional at times. Of course, that is kind of his thing, and I just want to keep reading more of his books, so hopefully I will enjoy this one. Okay, here's another one that I said I would read in 2024, and I did not, so I'm putting it on my list for this year, and that is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. I think this was on the New York Times, was it top 100 books or whatever one of those lists was. It showed up on multiple lists, and I've also just seen multiple people loving it and highly recommending this series. It is a 4-book series, so here we are starting a new series, but I do have the first and second book on my physical TBR, so if I like this one, I can continue on and get wrapped up in a literary fiction series, which I don't do a lot of. I know this is translated fiction. The author is unknown, but I think she is Italian, or at least this book is set in Italy, and it follows these two girls over time, and we just get to see their friendship grow and all of their struggles and all that. So very excited to see what the hype is about for this one. So this one I just added because I watched Sarah from Sarah's Cozy Corner, her video this morning. She read this book and she gave a review of it, loved it, and it's on my shelf and I just need to read it. So this is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. I have this one and what is it, 1,000 Splendid Suns, I believe. Both of these I found at Goodwill and I have not read them yet. And I've also heard that this is very heavy, very heartbreaking, but just really powerful, really beautifully written, just a great story. I think this is his debut novel, so that is great that this one has gotten such good reviews for it being his first novel. I think it's about this young boy who lives in Afghanistan, and I think it starts in an earlier time, I don't know what year, and then it goes forward into the future, I believe. Yeah, I really don't know a whole lot about it, but I would love to read a book by this author finally. This next one is more of a literary mystery. It's by the author who wrote The God of the Woods, which if you saw my last video, you'll know that was on my top 10 of last year. So I want to read this book of hers, which is Along Bright River by Liz Moore. I think she specializes in kind of literary, historical, slow burn, mystery, character-driven kind of books, and so I think this is a similar one. I don't know if this one is actually historical. It's set in Philadelphia and it mentions the opioid crisis. It follows two sisters, one who is a cop and one who lives on the streets and is struggling with addiction, and then the one on the streets disappears. I believe it does go back and forth from present day to these girls' childhood. I'm just ready for another kind of character-focused mystery by this author. And the last one doesn't really fit with any of these at all. I just added it in here, and this is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which I thought this book came out very recently because I've been hearing a lot about it lately, but apparently it came out in 2013, so it's been making a resurgence, I guess. I've been seeing a ton about this, just like a YA murder mystery with this cast of characters that all have these special abilities, and it's been compared to Criminal Minds. Mimi and I have been talking about buddy reading this one, so that should be fun. Another series to start, but I feel like they're going to be super fast-paced. The font is quite big, and it seems like these are the kind of books you can just fly through, so I feel like if I like this book, I could probably read the whole series this year and just binge it and have a really fun time. Okay, so we have 4 or 5 more books here. I've lost track. My last category is classics. I read a ton of classics in high school and college and then kind of got burned out, so I haven't read a ton of classics since then, but I do enjoy them and I would love to check out some of the really popular and highly recommended ones that I have not read yet. One of these I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned this in a video actually. This is a book I got for Christmas though, and I'm equally excited and terrified for this, and you'll probably know as soon as I hold it up. So this is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. I mean, yeah, it's like 1,200 pages, I believe. Not to say I can't read a book this length, because I read several of them last year, but with it being a classic, you know, the language style might be a little harder to get into, although I have heard that it is slightly easier to read than you would expect for the time period and the size of it. So I'm very curious. I've heard some people say it's like their all-time favorite book. Yeah, I just really want to read this powerful story of redemption and betrayal, forgiveness. Those are all the things I've heard about it. I have seen the movie, but I don't really remember, so I'll be going in mostly blind, I would say. The next one was one that I wanted to read last fall. I think it was on my fall TBR, but I never got around to it, partially because we were gone for some of the fall after the hurricane. I didn't bring this book with me and I just wasn't in the headspace to read a classic. So anyway, maybe this fall I will read it. I hope so. And this is Dracula by Bram Stoker, a classic vampire story. Again, I've heard some people reading it lately or this past fall and really enjoying it. And so I cannot wait to finally read this book this fall. This next book feels like a summer book for some reason. Tell me if I'm right, if you've read it. I don't know, so I'll probably try to read this in the summer. I have, again, heard wonderful things about this. It says it's the winner of the Nobel Prize, so that is a good sign. This is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I have always heard of this and I don't know a ton about it, but especially with me wanting to read more diversely this year, this author, he's born in Colombia and it's set in Colombia, I believe. I don't know that for sure, but it says this book tells the story of the rise and fall, birth and death of the mythical town of Macondo through the history of the Buendia family. Okay, so I guess it's set in a made-up town. I've heard it compared to Encanto maybe. That could be completely wrong, kind of giving me similar vibes. So it must have some magical realism. It's like a family story with beautiful writing. I am very excited to get into this one this year. And this last one I need your help on because the 3 books that I'm trying to choose between all seem to fit in this similar category. And I own 2 of them, but not the other, but I'll be able to find it easily. So if you've read any of these books, let me know if you think I should pick one over the other. So it's between Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and Jane Eyre by, oh my goodness, I should know who wrote Jane Eyre. Is it Anne Bronte? That's embarrassing. 1 second. Okay, well, I was right on the Bronte part. I don't know what Anne Bronte has written, but Jane Eyre was written by Charlotte Bronte. So we have a Emily Bronte and a Charlotte Bronte, and then a French author. All of these feel very gothic, kind of darker, mysterious, atmospheric kind of books with maybe a little bit of romance involved. I'll hold both of these up, and then Jane Eyre would be the other. Let me know if you think I would like one of them more than the other, or if you preferred one over the other, and maybe I'll read all of them, but more realistically, I'll probably only read one. So let me know what you think I should read of those 3 options. Those are my top 25 priority reads for 2025. Again, I plan to read more than these, but I would really love to get to the end of this year and say that I've read all of these books, or if nothing else, half of these books. But I would like to get through a good amount of them. So again, let me know if any of these appeal to you as well, or if they're on your TBR and maybe we could buddy read them at some point. And of course, let me know what your priority reads are for this year because I can add some more to my list. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye!